So I've been testing Ciaconna for the past 24 hours and she has insane buffing and supportive capabilities, but only if you know a few tricks to play her properly. In case you're new here, welcome to Ciaconna's character breakdown video, which belongs to the character breakdown series where we build and test your favorite resonators to provide you with the most effective ways to use them in withering waves. I'll not only be covering the basics of her kit like a generic guide, but we'll go deeper into pros and cons of certain abilities, tips and tricks that you can use to properly manage your Forte stacks to outro quickly from the field, and best rotations with different team compositions as well. If this video provides value to you in any way, be sure to leave a like and subscribe because it helps me out tremendously. Before we begin, I would like to clarify a mistake that I made in Ciaconna's weapon pool value analysis. The 10% error resistance shred applies to all teammates, which you can test yourself in the character trials section in the game, since she's equipped with her weapon there, so you have my sincerest apologies. With this in mind and the huge crit rate substats, it can provide decent value for a free-to-play account if you can afford it, so be sure to keep that in mind. With that said, let's get into the video. Her entire kit revolves around her basic attacks. If you spam her basic attacks, Ciaconna will perform 4 basic attack stages, as you can see right here. But if you look closely, the 4th basic attack, which applies arrow erosion, ends up with a circle around her, and the moment she leaves the circle, she will be replaced with a clone called Ensemble Sylphs to perform a solo concert. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm gonna call them clones. As you can see right here, every solo concert will regenerate 1 Forte stack whether you hit an enemy with it or not. The interesting thing about the clones is that they can help Ciaconna finish her 4th basic attack, which also regenerates Forte stacks in case you're interrupted by an enemy or have to dash out of the 4th basic attack. So if you want to reduce Ciaconna's field time, you need to learn how to dash out of the 4th basic attack so that you can quickly start another basic attack chain to regain additional Forte stacks. And you can do that by simply dashing when the 4th basic attack animation that starts the solo concert begins like this. Ciaconna can also start a solo concert from midair attacks, but it's not recommended to use it because of how vulnerable you can be when in midair, and you can only dodge once, so try to refrain from using midair attacks as much as possible. When you press your basic attack button after a dodge, or if you dodge counter, she will follow up with basic attack stage 3, and you can proceed to stage 4 and cancel the animation, which is recommended to let your clone finish the 4th basic attack and start a solo concert. But for some odd reason, there is a slight delay between the 3rd and 4th basic attack animation that starts the solo concert. For the normal basic attack spam version, you can dash right after she appears, which will summon a clone to finish the 4th basic attack and start a solo concert, but the dodge counter version adds a delay after she appears before she can perform the 4th basic attack. So be sure to delay your dash input after the 3rd basic attack from a dodge counter, or else it'll cancel the whole basic attack chain entirely. Now that you're familiar with all the available methods of starting a solo concert, let's talk about the benefits. Starting a solo concert grants every teammate 24% arrow damage bonus, and the insane part about this buff is that it applies to all teammates, including Ciaconna herself, as long as you have a clone on the field, and the clones generated from the 4th basic attack never expires, and they will stay on the field forever until you cast her liberation, so you don't need to actually worry about the error buff uptime. Skill. Ciaconna's skill is pretty straightforward. Casting it will apply 1 stack of arrow erosion and recovers a decent amount of resonance energy, but it can also help Ciaconna skip the 1st basic attack stage and proceed to the 4th basic attack stage to summon the clones much faster. Resonance liberation. The liberation is pretty straightforward as well. Casting it will remove all clones that you have on the field and replace them with the ones that help Ciaconna with her musical performance, granting you a shield. The shield is just there to help you decide which negative status effect you prefer after casting her liberation. Now keep in mind that casting her liberation also procs the full buff of the passive that grants the 24% arrow damage bonus because it's technically seen as starting a solo concert since she summons clones to join her musical performance. So as long long as your musical performance goes on, your teammates will have the aero damage buff after casting her liberation. When her musical performance begins, you'll see these triggers on your screen representing spectral frazzle and aero erosion. Selecting one of them will apply the corresponding stack, and if you swap to another character, the last stack you chose will get applied and deal small damage along with the stack application. If you swap to another character without selecting anything, it will apply aero erosion by default. Keep in mind that the liberation locks you in the musical performance animation, so you always need to use it when you have at least 75% of your concerto energy filled up to outro from the field right after using it. Keep in mind that the damage over time from her liberation doesn't regenerate any resonance energy, whether she's the active character on the field or not. And the concerto energy it regenerates only works if you stay on her to always activate the triggers every time, which applies the aero erosion or spectral frazzle. So if she's not the active character on the field, the only benefit you get is the aero damage buff that gets activated after casting her liberation, and the aero erosion or spectral frazzle stacks application. While you can't do anything about the concerto energy that you don't get when she is not the active character on the field, you can do something about her resonance energy regeneration if you're using the Gust of Walking set to make your runs a bit smoother. The Fleur-de-Lis Sword Echo Resonance Energy Regeneration happens continuously, but not instantly after casting it, so what you need to do is to use it and cast a liberation immediately to recover the resonance energy it regenerates, as you guys can see right here. This can help make your rotations very smoother so that you have a high chance of being guaranteed to use a liberation every rotation. Forte Circuit. Ciacconna's Forte Circuit is pretty straightforward as well. When you have 3 Forte stacks, just hold your basic attack to summon a tornado that groups enemies and hit them multiple times, applying 1 aero erosion. Casting it will regenerate exactly 25% of your concerto energy, and keep in mind that the extra hits does not regenerate any additional concerto energy. If we tie everything I've said together, Ciacconna's field time looks really simple, like this. You intro with her and spam your basic attacks to start a solo concert, and keep in mind that the intro also regenerates 1 Forte stack. Use your skill, spam basic attacks again to start another solo concert, perform a heavy attack, echo skill, liberation, and then end the rotation. This will be the fundamentals of what you have to do with Ciaconna whenever she's on the field. Build. For weapons, I've already covered them in a separate video, which I'll leave in the description, but to go over them briefly, first priority if you can't afford her signature is the Static Mist due to the crit rate substat that makes her build much easier due to the crit damage on her skill tree, and the passive that grants 10% attack to the next character that activates her outro skill, which synergizes well with her role as a sub DPS buffer. The second priority is the Last Dance, but only use it if you're going to be using Ciaconna in a Shorekeeper team, so that she can do some decent damage due to the loss of crit rate substat. And her damage is actually quite impressive even at S0, as you can see right here. The third priority will be the Romance in Furrow Land, which mainly buffs her personal damage, and you can get it for free by crafting it in Renacita. For her echoes, the Gust of Walking is recommended in teams where the main damage dealer belongs to the aero attribute. It grants 40% aero damage bonus to Ciaconna and 15% aero damage bonus to everyone in the team, so that means that she can provide a total of 39% aero damage bonus to the entire team if we include her passive from starting a solo concert, which is absolutely insane. For the stats, go with 43311. Go with crit rate or crit damage for the 4 cost depending on what you're lacking. The 3 cost will be double aero damage bonus, and the 1 cost will be attack percentage if you're using a 5-star weapon, but if you're using a 4-star weapon, go with attack and aero damage bonus on the 3 cost. If you're going to be running her in a non-aero DPS team, like with Zani for example, Moonlit will be recommended. Go with 43311, and the stats will be the same as I mentioned for the Gust of Walking set. Team building. To be honest, S0 Ciaconna does not have her best DPS to pair her with at the current state of the game because her 100% aero erosion damage amplification is useless at the moment. My guess will be Katathea due to the hints that Kuro has given from her Drake marketing about her attribute being aero, but even without that she still has synergy with existing characters like Jiyan and Zani. Jiyan's best in slot sub DPS buffer is currently Mortefi, who provides 38% heavy attack damage amplification. If we compare that to the 39% error damage bonus we get from Ciaconna, Jiyan will suffer from roughly 30% damage loss overall if we consider the damage that he can do from the first stage of his King Long mode basic attacks. I don't have S2 Ciaconna yet, but if you do let me know in the comments about your test results when you replace Mortefi with Ciaconna. For those wondering how Jiyan will perform by playing him with S0 Ciaconna and Mortefi, I did try out that team composition, but the Shorekeeper team actually did better, mainly due to the crit rate, crit damage, damage amplification, outro skill, and attack buffs from my S0 Shorekeeper. So unless you have S2 Ciaconna, it is not recommended to pair her with Jiyan. However, it's different for Zani. Phoebe became a meta slave sub DPS buffer for Zani ever since her release. But the release of Ciaconna now gives you the chance to run Phoebe as a DPS paired with Spectral Rover, and Zani can now be paired with Ciaconna. So there will be 2 team rotations breakdown in this video, including a Jiyan team for those that have S2 Ciaconna, and Zani team for those that do not have Phoebe or want the freedom to run both of them in endgame content. For the Jiyan team, here's the build that I'm running. We first start with Shorekeeper's skill and do basic attacks to regenerate Forte stacks and consume it with a heavy attack. When her concerto energy is filled to about 75%, use her liberation and echo skill. Now intro with Ciaconna and spam her basic attacks. Now use her skill and spam basic attacks again. Now hold the basic attack button to use her Forte Circuit, echo skill, and use her liberation. Intro with Jiyan. Cast our liberation and proceed to use the double dragon technique, or simply spam your basic attacks if you can't manage that. Use a skill cast at the beginning of the rotation once the dragon animation begins, and use another one when his liberation state ends. Now intro with Shorekeeper and fill her concerto energy as we did in the previous rotation. But this time, when you intro with Ciaconna, swap to Jiyan to use a skill and echo after Ciaconna starts a solo concert. After that, simply build concerto and intro with Jiyan as we did in the first rotation. The best thing about this team composition, even though the buffing capabilities are actually very low for Jiyan when you're using S0 Ciaconna, is that you don't really need to worry about losing outro buffs from Mortefi since it only lasts for 14 seconds. So instead of doing double intro with Jiyan, that is exactly why I performed this rotation. So after the intro, you can smack the enemy for about a second, which will make Jiyan's liberation available. For the Zani team composition, here's the build that I'm running. The middle tower currently grants Spectral Frazzle stacks after an intro, so Inferno Rider will be the victim of this showcase. We first start with Ciaconna's Liberation and select Spectral Frazzle. We use it early here so that Zani can build her Blaze stacks as soon as possible. Now swap back to Shorekeeper and build Concerto to gain her outro skill, but here you need to be cautious. The first rotation does not provide enough resonance energy since Ciaconna will be using her musical performance throughout the rotation, so what we need to do here instead is to use Shorekeeper's Liberation a little bit early before we use our skill to regenerate some resonance energy for her so that we don't encounter any resonance energy issues in the next rotation. Now use our Echo skill and intro with Zani. Use our skill, basic attacks, which will make your special skill become available, but here when I use our skill it triggered a parry, so I got full Forte stacks much faster. Use our skill and cast our Liberation. Now spam your basic attacks until all the stacks have been consumed. And use our Liberation and cast our skill, intro with Shorekeeper and build Concerto energy. After her Liberation and Echo skill, intro with Ciaconna and spam basic attacks to use a solo concert. Use her skill and spam basic attacks again to use the final solo concert. Now hold the basic attack button to use her Forte Circuit. Echo Skill, and User Liberation. Select Spectral Frazzle and Intro with Zani. The skill cast we used in the first rotation should allow you to instantly get a special skill, so use it and cast our Liberation. Now spam basic attacks just like we did in the first rotation, and that's basically it for this rotation. There's one last rotation I had to cover, which is a DPS Ciaconna, but I'll leave that in a separate video because I don't want to drag this video on for too long. That'll be all for my Ciaconna character breakdown. Hope this video provided value to you, and if it did, leave a like and subscribe to support the channel because it's free and you can always change your mind. Be sure to also join our Discord community if you're having any issues with the game or just want a place to chill or hang out. Link will be in the channel description. Catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.